Picture this. You wake up, check yesterday's ad dashboard, and you see your return on ad spend jump 42% overnight. And then you realize you didn't even touch the account. That's what success looks like with a Google Performance Max campaign when it's set up the right way. But flip the coin, and the same campaign can torch your budget while you watch helplessly. So let's spend the next 10 minutes or so making sure that you land on the first side of that coin every single time. If you don't already know, Performance Max is Google's all-you-can-eat buffet. One campaign, every placement Google owns. Search, shopping, YouTube, display, discover, Gmail, even maps. You throw in your creative, your goals, your budget, and Google's AI brain decides where your ads go. Think of it as hiring 1,000 lightning-fast media buyers who place micro bets on every impression. The trick is feeding the swarm what it needs and steering it without handcuffing it. So, first things first, let's decode the brain. PMax runs on 3 inputs: auction data, which is billions of live searches, pages, and behaviors happening right now. Next, your assets, images, headlines, video, product feed, etc. And lastly, conversion feedback, actual sales or leads coming back through your Google tag. Every time an impression happens, the system predicts who's most likely to convert, what creative mix they're going to love, and what bid will win profitably. It's a living brain that retrains itself by the millisecond. But with all this machine learning steering the ship, you control more than you think. Pick one clear objective, set daily spend, choose your locations and languages, define the conversions that matter, and decide whether you want to chase a target ROAS or a target CPA. What you can't micromanage is exactly which network soaks up the money or which keyword themes, fire in search. That's all part of the, trust the system zone. But blind trust is bad business. So let's talk about, the tools that Google does give you. In the Insights tab, you're going to find search themes. Those are real queries that triggered your ad. If you see something irrelevant like, competitor's brand or off-based intent, send negative keywords to support or use the account level negative list and plug that drain. At the asset group level, you're going to see every headline, description, image, and video scored from low to best. Anything that's not pulling its weight after 2 weeks gets the axe. Now let's layer in the piece that everybody skips, the product data feed. If you sell physical goods, your merchant center feed is PMax rocket fuel. Here's the simple checklist. Create a merchant center account, connect your domain, and verify it. Then build a product feed, whether it's CSV, Google Sheets, or an API, it's filled with crystal clear titles that lead with the term shoppers actually type. For instance, women's black leather ankle boots size 8 is going to beat ankle boots style 432. Include GTINs, MPNs, brand, color, size, price, sale price, and rich product taxonomy. You need that list as detailed as possible. Upload it and let Google crawl your images, and then fix any red errors immediately. If you're on Shopify, this is a one-click breeze. Once approved, link Merchant Center to Google Ads. Now, inside your PMax campaign, those products live in a single listing group unless you segment them. So slice by brand, by margin, or season, to control which items get budget priority. The feed affects more than, shopping surfaces. The product images and prices can show up in Discover, YouTube, in-feed ads, Gmail promotions, even on search ads as image extensions. So a healthy feed means more eligible impressions, higher click-throughs, and cheaper auctions because Google trusts your data. So where does your money actually land? Imagine a single user shopping for hiking boots. They Google best waterproof hiking boots. Your product image could appear at the top of shopping. A text ad could sit in search, and your brand video could chase them on YouTube, all within minutes. PMax isn't network first, it's user first. So the model decides the cheapest path to your goal for that single user. So now let's talk about setup. I start with one campaign per primary goal. So for instance, e-commerce, that's purchases. For lead gen, it's qualified lead. Inside that campaign, I build asset groups around product clusters or buyer personas. So for example, an outdoor gear retailer with separate groups for hiking boots, trail jackets, and camping, cookware. Each gets its own images, headlines, videos, and audience signals. Why do we do this? So the machine can learn which creative and messaging combo converts each micro audience without blending signals. Audience signals are hints, not fences. Load your customer match list, your remarketing list, and a couple of in-market segments. The model uses them as a warm starting pool and then explores. If you want to accelerate learning, start with budget at least 15 times your target CPA per day or 10 times your average order value for ROAS goals. Underfunding shoves the algorithm into blind guessing. Optimization starts with data hygiene. So make sure conversion tracking fires once per sale, values are correct, and you set primary actions only. Broken pixels equal garbage learning. So give the campaign 7 full days before judging performance. Then open the Insights tab. Look at, conversion value by network. If search is crushing it and display is dead weight, raise the target ROAS slightly. The model is going to shift budget without you babysitting every placement. Next, asset maintenance is something you got to do monthly. Google grades creative freshness. If scores slip to good from best, drop new headlines and swap images. For products, update the feed anytime inventory, price or availability changes. A stale feed can get disapproved and pull the whole campaign down. All right, let's cover optimization tricks. Let's use the hero and skirmish method. One broad asset group holds all your products, your hero soaking up volume. Then carve skirmish groups around high margin items, add richer images and margin focused headlines. When a skirmish outruns the hero on conversion value per cost, manually raise budget share or lower its target ROAS so that Google allocates more impressions. Check conversion lag. PMax often shows a multi-day tail. If day 1 ROAS looks terrible, but day 7 ROAS is golden, you're fine. Use a day after conversion report to see the lag. If lag is long, resist the urge, to kill early. Instead, set an automated rule. If, conversion value per cost hasn't crossed 1 by day 7, pause the asset group. That's guardrails without micromanagement. Now, shopping exposure. A clean feed plus strong images equals high impression share on shopping tiles. Want the top of the carousel? Optimize titles with top queries and add lifestyle images as additional product shots. Google is testing richer creatives that pull those alternate images. Mark sale price, effective dates so that sale badge appears. We've seen click-through rates lift up to 30% from that badge alone. All right, 2 common mistakes. First, running standard shopping and PMax with overlapping products. PMax will usually cannibalize the cheaper clicks, leaving shopping bleeding without you really realizing it. If you keep both, exclude product IDs from one or the other. Second, ignoring brand terms. If your own brand is cheap and inflating ROAS, request a brand negative in PMax and run a dedicated brand search campaign so you see true prospecting performance. All right, here's a reporting sanity check. Track conversion value per cost, new versus returning customers, and impression share in shopping. Ignore vanity metrics like view through conversions in the early days. They're often inflated. So let's land the plane with a real example. We took over a footwear store's account. We split their PMax into 3 asset groups by category: trail, casual, and kids. We cleaned the merchant center feed, front-loaded titles with brand and model, fixed 60 red errors. Budget was set at 20 times target CPA. Audience signals, past purchasers, cart abandoners, in market for hiking. After 10 days lag, the hero group hit a 2.1 ROAS. Skirmish groups sat at 3.5. So we pushed more budget to the skirmishes, refreshed images with lifestyle shots, and added sales badges. 30 days in, overall ROAS hit 4.2 and shopping top of page share climbed from 28 to 61%. Same products, smarter feed, clearer structure. So let's wrap this up. PMax is a Formula One race car. Put cheap gas in, skip the pit crew, and it crashes. Give it premium fuel in the form of clean conversion data and a pristine product feed. Steer with theme-based asset groups, refresh the creative tires every month, and watch it lap your old campaigns. If you want that pit crew without hiring in-house, the link. Hit Pure Eye in my bio, and let's tune your performance max to win the race instead of circling the track.